Grouping hierarchy, groups in hierarchy is basically the most important way of managing resource. Not only in Azure, but basically in any place, right? You think about like a Windows file server, right? You also have all the different folders, and folders have different the subfolders. That's another way of grouping and hierarchy. But a lot of times there's also tasks that requires cross-hierarchy work. For example, if you want to calculate the cost of all function apps, or function apps with a certain utilization of certain things, or each department have a development environment and a production environment. Now you want to calculate across all departments what's the cost of development. So these are the things that's cross hierarchy. In this case, you will use the tag. Tag is some label, key value pairs that you can add to resources. So far, we actually have seen this multiple times. When you create a resource, when you create a resource, either it's a virtual machine or it's a storage account, you have the option to, at one step before the review, you have the option to create text, to attach to text. So the text can be something like you put your department, you put your environment, everything, anything. Um, Anything you want to put can be there, but usually within a company IT department should set up certain tagging requirement. They can be enforced by administrator. They can Administrators can mandate that everybody within within one subscription or within one resource group, every resource has to have a certain tag and value. It can be mandatory to have a tag value for a specified list. For example, here you can specify that every resource need to have a tag name tag, and the tag value has to be a certain value, such as a production or environment, whatever it is, right? So this can be inherited from hierarchy and the resource group, substreaming the groups too. So what you can use this for? It can provide a more flexible way of organizing. Usually, it's not even organizing; it's accessing and monitoring. So the purpose of the tag, one is to provide access, direct access to resources that has some tag. For example, if I have virtual machine has a label like this one has a Linux or Windows 11 or Windows 2019, then whenever want to run the update, I can identify the virtual machines by using the tag much easier, right? Instead of going through each resource group and find out all the virtual machines, then identify the identify the operating system. If I have a tag there with this operating system for each virtual machine, then it will save me much less a lot of time to get the virtual machines by doing a search in Azure. And the other way of utilizing tag is to use this for cost and usage statistics. You can calculate the cost for a certain tag. So if how much is spent on Linux machines, how much is spent on Windows machines, or the usage, like how many hours does the Linux machines run, how many hours does the Windows machine run. So these are the potential usage of a tag for identifying and analyzing the usage. The other way of doing managing group is really not a way of managing group, but how do you do this automation, right? So automation can be done with infrastructure as code, which means you use code to generate infrastructure such as virtual machine, storage, database. So far in our course and Actually, in fact, in all across this course, we will create all objects, all resources from the Azure portal. The issue with this approach is you have to be very careful to remember what choices you made. For example, if I choose the operating system as a Ubuntu, next time I have to choose Ubuntu too. If in the very beginning I choose Windows 11, I need to make a note because Ubuntu is the default. If I choose anything different like Windows 11, I have to make a note. Next time I create a similar machine, if I reprovision that, I have to go into that particular Dropbox and choose Windows 11. And it's very easy to forget one or two things if you are working on a graphical user interface because human beings just make mistakes, right? So what you can do is you can specify everything, all these tiny non-default setups in your code in a presentable way so that it generates the same environment every time it deploys. Right? With infrastructure as code, DevOps teams can work together with a unified set of practices and tools. And here, what the stress is a teamwork, right? Because it may be difficult if it's difficult for you to remember all things. Think about how difficult it is for other people to do the same thing as you, right? You created a machine, it can run a certain code without the issue. But when someone else try to run your code, he or she cannot do that because they choose the wrong operating system. Instead of running that on Windows 11, they're running this on Ubuntu. So all your code base doesn't work anymore. That's when IaC can help. It can level the playfield for DevOps teams and can deploy infrastructure rapidly and reliably at scale. One example here, for example, let's give an example. This one is using the Azure CLI. So AZ is the command. You run AZ and you are saying, oh, this is for resource group, AZ group create. By following this, you pretty much can already guess this command will create a group and with a name, with a location. So next time, maybe I will change the name, but I don't need to change the location. It will, if as long as I don't change the location, it will always be created in East US, right? And then I do a AZVM create. Apparently, this one used to create a virtual machine. So I will utilizing the resource group above with give it a name, location, image, Ubuntu long-term support, public IP SQL standard, and administrator username. All these can kept there and can run again and again over and over without mistakes. Any people run this will have the same result as what you would have, right? It's not going to, they are not going to make any mistake here because as long as your code runs through Azure once, it should be able to run through that many more times. Then following that, we have a more like opened up a Flask HTTP port and get the public IP address and supply the IP address uh, to this run command that works, right? So example, how do you get an IP address? IP address can change every time. How do you know which IP address works, right? And once you set up the virtual machine, you want to run certain commands in the virtual machine to set up properly. You want to run app update. Of course, after that, you will probably need to doing more. You need to install Flask, install Git, and download your code from GitHub, you deploy the Flask. All these things can be done with this command. If you ask someone else to do that, it's hard for someone else to spend all this time logging in and connect and run each script, and it's easy to forget. So the important thing here is one, we already see scripts can be reused and the parameters can remain the same if you don't change those. So you can do this again and again repetitively, and you can do this in scale. You can launch the 100 instance of that. You can run it 100 times, and you get 100 instance of virtual machines. If you want to do parallel processing, this is really powerful. If you want to scale up your productivity, that's really powerful. Now, you can also have variables and the conditional branches. You can also say, oh, if it's deployed in West US, use this key, use the encryption key. If this is deployed in Europe, use the other European key. So then you can have variables. For example, resource name can be changed, right? Can be changed each time you have a different resource name, your resource group name, and then you can use tags and groups, or can also be specified in the code so that you can enforce tag. Because when I don't know whether what do you think when I talk about enforcing tag, but human beings generally feel frustrated when they see this for tag enforcement. They have to manually specify tags, and everybody would be like, "Oh, I already created the resource. Why do I still need to spend all this time creating this unnecessary this tax is a waste of time?" We all know that's not waste of time. It's important for the management, but whoever create that, they don't feel the pain of management. They just feel it's a it's a pain to waste their money, with their time. But with IaC, with the infrastructure as code, you run the same code. It will automatically attach tags and groups to the resource. So that will make your everybody's life much easier, right? So this back to the automation. The benefit of IOC is consistency across environments, right? You use the same script to create the machine in different environments. They should have the same setup. Then it's about completeness of deployment. You won't be able to you won't forget, you won't miss steps because you forgot. And this is especially for security. A lot of people, for some reason, people all understand security is important, but for some reason they all don't want to spend time in setting up security things. And IaC, infrastructure as code, will help with this by automate those security, because security measures, as boring as it is, they are pretty much predefined, right? We all know what is supposed to be secured, just that whether we want to do that or not. Now that you have infrastructure as code, you can write this as a routine which will run every time, and without you even notice that. And then, of course, speed up deployment. Instead of human beings go to a browser and making clicks here and there, you can run this in one batch, one script in one batch. And then you also can check the change to the code so that you know whoever made a change. If you run the script and it failed, you can go back and see who made the change for what reason. So this is accountability. And finally, you have lifecycle management. um, so in Microsoft, there in certain services that you use the infrastructure as code. There's also this ability to remove the blueprint completely once for all. So your script is associated with the technical stack, resource stack. If you modify your technical stack, Microsoft can automatically update the resources for you. If you delete it, you specify you delete it, then Microsoft can also delete the resource for you. So which makes the lifecycle management much easier, especially in removal of footprints.